The hum of the engines echoed in the belly of the Invictus, Captain Selene Marks' flagship. The ship floated silently in the vast expanse of space, its sleek form cutting through the black void like a spear through the night. Outside the viewing deck, the stars shimmered, unblinking and indifferent. Yet, within the confines of this cold metal behemoth, there was tension, a palpable, suffocating weight that hung in the air. Selene stood before the large holographic display, her arms crossed. The flickering blue light bathed her in an eerie glow as she stared at the unknown fleet that had appeared on the edge of human space. The Exorcar. They're not just here for trade or diplomacy, she muttered to herself. The alien ships loomed like ancient titans, their dark hulls reflecting the starlight. Massive, imposing. The Exorcar had been rumored to possess technology far beyond humanity's comprehension, and their culture was as mysterious as it was ruthless. No one had ever dared to question them, until now. "Captain!" came the voice of Lieutenant Carter, breaking her thoughts. She turned to find the young officer standing behind her, a pale look on his face. "The Exorcar have transmitted a message. It's not what we expected." Selene's brow furrowed, a tightening knot forming in her chest. She had anticipated some form of communication, but the urgency in Carter's voice sent a ripple of unease through her. "Put it through," she commanded, her voice sharp as a blade. She turned back to the display as the holographic transmission flickered into life. A figure appeared before them, a towering alien draped in dark robes. Its skin was a deep, midnight hue, its features sharp and angular, with eyes glowing like embers in the dark. The creature's voice was deep and resonant, laced with an unyielding authority. "Humanity," the Exorcar leader said, his voice carrying the weight of centuries. "We come with a warning. You are on the brink of a great war, and it is not one you will win." The room fell deathly silent. Selene's pulse quickened as the Exorcar continued, each word hanging like a sword over her head. "There is an unstoppable force approaching, an enemy that cannot be defeated, no matter your strength, no matter your will. This force is relentless, merciless, and it will consume everything in its path." The alien paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. The silence stretched for several long moments, each second an eternity. "We are not your enemies," the Exorcar leader continued. "But if you continue down this path of conquest, you will become the very thing you fear. The enemy you are warned about is you. You will become the unstoppable force." With that, the transmission ended, leaving nothing but the eerie hum of the ship's engines to fill the void. Selene's mind raced, her thoughts spinning in chaotic circles. The words of the Exorcar leader gnawed at her, unsettling her in ways she couldn't fully understand. Humanity had always been aggressive, driven by an insatiable thirst for exploration, for conquest. But was that the very thing that would lead to their destruction? "Captain?" Carter's voice broke through her thoughts again, this time tinged with uncertainty. "What do we do?" Selene looked at him, her expression hardening into a mask of resolve. She couldn't afford to show weakness, not now. Not with the entire fate of humanity hanging in the balance. "We prepare," she said, her voice calm but firm. "If what they say is true, we can't afford to ignore it. But we won't be intimidated. The Exorcar may have their ancient technology, but we have something they can't understand, a will to survive, a drive that no one, not even them, can crush." The crew in the command room nodded, but there was an undercurrent of doubt that none of them could shake. They had faced countless challenges, alien forces, hostile territories, brutal conditions, but the Exorcar's warning struck a deeper chord. This wasn't just another battle for territory. This was something else entirely. "Set course for the nearest colony," Selene ordered. "We're not waiting around to see if this unstoppable enemy shows up. We'll be ready. Prepare the fleet for defensive operations." As the crew began to move with the urgency of a well-trained unit, Selene remained at the command table, her gaze fixed on the empty space where the alien ship had once hovered. Her fingers tapped rhythmically against the surface, a nervous habit she had developed over the years. But her mind was elsewhere, trying to make sense of the Exorcar's warning. They hadn't just threatened humanity. They had predicted it, painted a picture of a future where humanity's own actions would bring about its downfall. And the more Selene thought about it, the more she realized how close that future might be. Humanity had grown far too powerful, far too quickly. Their spacefaring fleets stretched across the galaxy, with colonies sprouting up on distant worlds. The United Human Defense Force, UHDF, had become a symbol of power, with Selene at the helm of the most formidable fleet ever created. But at what cost? She couldn't help but recall the dozens of battles they had fought, the wars they had won, and the countless enemies they had obliterated in their wake. Was that what the Exorcar meant? Was humanity's relentless expansion the very thing that would turn them into the unstoppable force that would ravage the galaxy? Captain! Carter's voice interrupted her again. We've just received a transmission from Earth. It's from the Council. They want to know how we're proceeding. Selene glanced over her shoulder, her eyes narrowing. The Earth Council had always been a distant entity, more concerned with politics than actual defense. They would want answers, assurances. But this time, Selene knew better than to give them easy answers. Tell them we're preparing for any eventuality, she said, her voice steady but tinged with an unspoken urgency. We don't have time for their doubts. This is bigger than any of us. As the transmission went out, Selene took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves. The Exorcar had warned them. And now, it was up to humanity to prove that they could face whatever came next, no matter how unstoppable it seemed. But deep down, she couldn't shake the nagging feeling that the enemy was already here. Not in the form of some alien fleet, but in the very nature of humanity itself. The Invictus drifted deeper into the silence of space, its engines humming steadily as it charted a course toward the human colony on New Terra. The crew worked tirelessly, preparing for the worst, yet none could shake the haunting words of the Exorcar, asterisk. The enemy is you. Asterisk. The warning lingered in the air like a dark cloud. Captain Selene Marks stood at the command console, her eyes scanning the readouts of the fleet's status. The ship's interior buzzed with the soft hum of machinery, but the tension was thick. She had expected a challenge, but this was something else entirely. Captain! Carter's voice sliced through the tension, bringing her back to the present. The young officer was standing beside a console, his face pale. We've intercepted a signal. It's from an unregistered source, just outside the colony's perimeter. Selene's pulse quickened. Can you trace it? Not fully, Captain. It's encrypted, highly sophisticated. But we've managed to get a partial decode. Put it through, she ordered, her voice steady despite the unease gnawing at her. The screen flickered and then stabilized, revealing a holographic projection of a figure that made Selene's breath catch. It was another Exorcar, this time not a leader but someone far more ominous. The creature's eyes glowed brighter than before, and its expression was one of deep concern. Humanity, the Exorcar began, its voice strained. We were wrong. You were right to question us. The threat is far worse than we feared. What we've been unable to tell you is that the unstoppable enemy is not just a force, it is a force born of you. The room fell into a hushed silence as Selene absorbed the words. The Exorcar's warning had taken a disturbing new turn. The enemy wasn't just some mythical alien invader. It was a consequence of humanity's very existence. We've been monitoring your movements for centuries, the alien continued, and while we have sought to prevent your expansion, we failed to understand the scale of your potential. It's not just your technology, your ships, your weapons, it's the sheer willpower of your species. Humanity can adapt, can innovate, can survive against any odds. And that is what makes you dangerous. Selene's mind raced. She had always known humanity's tenacity was their greatest strength. It was why they had survived the darkest moments of history. But to hear the Exorcar admit their failure to understand that power was both unnerving and, for some strange reason, empowering. Humanity's drive to survive and conquer had now made them a threat, not just to the galaxy, but to their very existence. What exactly do you mean? Selene asked, her voice firm but betraying a hint of disbelief. How does this threat manifest? What is it? The Exorcar's hologram flickered, its expression darkening. It is the human instinct, your relentless need to expand, to push beyond your limits. You believe you are doing it to survive, but what you fail to realize is that your expansion is creating ripples in the fabric of space-time. With every new colony, every new world you conquer, the enemy grows stronger. It is born of your aggression and the chaos it sows. Carter's voice cut in, shaking with confusion. Are you saying humanity is creating an intergalactic weapon by expanding? Is that the enemy? Are we actually creating this unstoppable force ourselves? Yes, the Exorcar confirmed. And no. The force itself is not a weapon in the traditional sense. It is the result of your unchecked ambitions, the echoes of your survival instinct that now stretch across the cosmos. The more you expand, the more you tear at the fabric of reality itself. Your desire to push boundaries is awakening something ancient, something beyond your understanding. The room was still. The weight of the Exorcar's words settled over them like a blanket of cold dread. Selene's heart pounded in her chest, her thoughts scrambled. Humanity had always been driven by the need to survive, to grow, to explore the unknown. But the very thing that had kept them alive and thriving was now threatening to undo everything they had built. She turned toward Carter, her eyes narrowing. What are our options? We need to stop expanding, Carter said quietly. That's the only way to prevent this force from growing. The more we spread, the more we risk creating an even greater threat. Stop expanding? Selene repeated, her voice a sharp whisper. You want us to turn our backs on everything we fought for? I'm not saying it's easy, Captain, Carter replied. But if we keep going down this path, we risk becoming the very thing the Exorcar warned us about. We might not survive it. Selene ran a hand through her hair, frustration bubbling up. What do we do now, she thought. The stakes had shifted. This wasn't just a fight against an external enemy, it was a battle against humanity's own nature. Captain, came a voice from the back of the room. It was Lieutenant Hernandez, one of Selene's most trusted officers. There's something else. We've been tracking an anomaly near the core of New Terra. It's unlike anything we've seen before. Selene's instincts flared. What kind of anomaly? It's an energy signature. A massive one. It's centered around the colony's power grid, and we're getting strange readings. It's almost as if the anomaly is reacting to the colony's expansion, Hernandez said, his voice filled with uncertainty. Get a team ready, Selene ordered. We're going in. I need to know what's going on, and I need to know now. As the crew sprang into action, Selene stood still, her mind wrestling with the implications of everything she had just learned. The Exorcar had warned humanity, but what if they were right? What if their survival instinct, their need to expand, was indeed the cause of something far worse than anyone had ever anticipated? Her thoughts drifted back to the Exorcar's final words. The enemy is born of you. Humanity's greatest strength might just be its most dangerous flaw. The path they had chosen, survival, growth, conquest, might now lead to their undoing. And the worst part? They hadn't even realized they were the ones creating the destruction. As the Invictus headed toward New Terra's core, Selene couldn't shake the feeling that they were already too late. The unstoppable enemy might not be an alien at all. It might be humanity itself. Asterisk. The Invictus trembled as it entered the gravity well of New Terra's core. Selene Marks stood at the helm, her fingers tracing the cold metal of the console. Her gaze was fixed on the swirling data streams in front of her, but her mind was far from the tactical analysis flashing across the screen. It was consumed by a far greater, more insidious threat, the truth that had begun to take root in her mind. Humanity was the enemy. Not the alien forces they'd always fought against. Not the galactic factions that had tried to wipe them out over the centuries. The greatest threat to their survival wasn't an invader from the stars. It was their own nature. Captain, Carter's voice broke through her thoughts, but it sounded distant, as if coming from the far side of a canyon. We've reached the coordinates. The anomaly is intensifying. Selene nodded, but the weight of it all made it hard to breathe. Her eyes flickered over to the holographic display showing the power grid of New Terra, its glowing lines like the veins of a living organism. The readings were disturbing. The energy signature radiating from the colony's core was unlike anything they'd ever encountered. It pulsed with an eerie intensity, like a heart beating too quickly. "Prepare a team. We're going in," Selene said, her voice hard but with a trace of uncertainty beneath the command. The command room buzzed with activity, officers moving with practiced efficiency as they readied the shuttle for deployment. As the door sealed behind her, Selene couldn't help but feel the deep weight of the responsibility pressing down on her chest. The very thing they'd been warned about, humanity's relentless drive, its need to conquer, to expand, to survive, was now threatening to unravel the fabric of the galaxy itself. She closed her eyes for a brief moment, letting the quiet hum of the shuttle surround her. The soft whirring of the engines, the cool press of her uniform against her skin, the rhythmic thrum of her heartbeat, everything felt distant, like she was standing on the edge of a precipice, peering into the abyss. There was no turning back. "Captain," came the voice of Hernandez, snapping her from her thoughts. "We're nearing the anomaly. It's unlike anything we've ever seen before. It's pulsing." Selene nodded sharply, her fingers tapping restlessly on her chair's armrest. "I know. Prepare for anything." As the shuttle descended toward New Terra's surface, the atmosphere outside thickened with turbulence. The glowing tendrils of the anomaly flickered in the distance, casting strange, unearthly lights across the planet's surface. Selene's thoughts flickered back to the Exorcar's words. Asterisk. "You will become the unstoppable force." Asterisk. The shuttle rocked violently as it pierced through the dense clouds, the world outside rapidly becoming a blur. Selene's stomach churned. Was this it? Was this the moment they would come face to face with the consequences of humanity's own survival instinct? The shuttle skidded to a halt with a jarring lurch. The door hissed open, and Selene was the first to step out, her boots hitting the cracked, barren earth of New Terra. The colony's perimeter was a wasteland of scorched soil, evidence of the strange energy fluctuations that had begun here. A massive crater lay ahead, where the power grid had once been. A pulsating energy field radiated from the center, sending shockwaves through the air. It was as if the planet itself was alive, reacting to humanity's expansion. "Captain, look at this!" Carter's voice came from behind her. She turned to see him standing near a series of fractured data terminals, his face lit by the flickering glow of the anomaly. "The readings they're impossible. This isn't just a power surge. It's being fed by the grid itself." Selene's mind spun. The energy wasn't just surging, it was growing. Feeding off humanity's expansion. A direct result of everything they had built. She stepped forward, her boots crunching against the debris underfoot. "We've awakened it," Selene whispered, her voice barely audible in the heavy air. Hernandez came up beside her, his face grim. This is the result of everything we've done, isn't it? We keep expanding, keep conquering, and now we've created this thing." The realization hit like a punch to the gut. The endless wars, the colonies, the satellites, the advancements, it had all led to this. A destructive force born of their own nature. Humanity's drive for survival had unwittingly awakened an unstoppable enemy, and now it was feeding on their growth. "I won't let this be the end," Selene said, her voice filled with determination, though the weight of it all threatened to break her resolve. She glanced at her crew, at the soldiers who had fought and bled for humanity's future. "We're not backing down. We will fix this." She turned toward the anomaly, her eyes narrowing. The air hummed with power, and the light from the anomaly bathed the landscape in unnatural hues. The colony was silent now, its once bustling streets abandoned. There was no turning back. If humanity was to survive, they would need to make the hardest decision of their existence. "The anomaly is reacting to us," Carter said. "It's like it knows we're here." "Not just us," Selene replied, her eyes hardening. "It knows what we are. It knows what we've become. We created it by continuing to push forward without understanding the consequences. It's the culmination of every battle, every expansion, every colony we've taken. We've invited it into existence. The words felt cold as they left her lips, but there was no denying it. They had been warned, and yet they had kept pushing. They had been warned about becoming the enemy, and now they were staring it in the face. "I'll activate the grid," Hernandez said, his voice tense. "We need to shut this down. If we can sever the connection between the anomaly and the grid, we might be able to stop it from growing." Selene nodded. "Do it. But be ready. If it doesn't work, we might need to destroy the colony to contain it." There was a long pause before Hernandez responded. "Understood." As Hernandez worked to initiate the shutdown sequence, Selene looked around, the enormity of the situation weighing down on her. The stakes were no longer just about territory or survival. It was about the soul of humanity itself. The drive that had brought them this far had now created something that could destroy them all. And in the end, they might be the only ones who could save themselves, from themselves. The ground trembled beneath Selene Marks as she stood in the heart of New Terra's ravaged colony, the hum of the anomaly growing louder with each passing second. The energy field pulsed, a steady rhythm like the thrum of a heartbeat, resonating deep within the planet's core. Every instinct in Selene screamed that they were running out of time. "We're losing control," Carter said, his voice strained as he worked furiously at the terminal. His hands flew over the controls, but the data he was receiving only made things worse. "The anomaly's energy output is spiking again. Whatever we're doing, it's not enough." Selene clenched her jaw, her eyes narrowed on the glowing vortex that had begun to form in the center of the crater. The very fabric of reality seemed to warp and twist around it, bending space and time. She could feel its gravity, pulling at her, as if it were some kind of cosmic predator, just waiting to devour them all. "We need to end this now," Selene muttered, more to herself than anyone else. Hernandez, standing at the edge of the crater, turned to her with urgency in his voice. "Captain, we can't keep playing defense. This thing is growing stronger, faster than we anticipated. We need a drastic solution. If we don't stop it now, we'll have no way to contain it. No way to stop the force we've created." Selene's eyes locked on the swirling chaos of the anomaly. Humanity's endless thirst for expansion, for survival, had led them to this point. They had pushed and pushed, not knowing, or perhaps not caring, what they had set into motion. The very thing that had made them strong, their will to survive, had now become their undoing. "We are the enemy." The thought echoed through her mind, bitter and cold. Humanity had always viewed itself as the underdog, struggling, striving, always outmatched by stronger forces. But now, it was their ambition, their uncontrollable drive, that had become the force of destruction. They were the predators now. And the galaxy was the prey. "Captain," Carter's voice interrupted her thoughts. "I've tried everything. The anomaly is too powerful. We don't have much time." She took a deep breath, pushing down the flood of conflicting emotions that threatened to drown her. The weight of leadership was never as heavy as it was now. Every decision she made could tip the scale. Every choice might seal humanity's fate. "We have one option left," Selene said, turning toward her team. Her voice was steady, though the fear clawed at her insides. "We shut it down manually. We have to go inside the core." The crew exchanged uncertain glances. Going into the heart of the anomaly was a suicide mission. It was a gamble, one that no one was guaranteed to survive. But it was the only way. "I'll go," Selene said, her voice unwavering. "No." Hernandez stepped forward, his face drawn with concern. "Captain, you can't." "I'm the one who's responsible," she said, cutting him off. "I started this. It's my mistake, and I will end it." There was a long silence before Hernandez nodded reluctantly. "Then we go with you. You're not doing this alone." Selene shook her head. "You have a duty to this ship. I'll handle it. Stay here. If this works, you'll be the first to know. If it doesn't," she paused, her eyes darkening, "then humanity will be on its own." Without another word, she turned toward the heart of the anomaly, her boots crunching against the ground. The energy field flickered, as if sensing her approach. With every step she took, the air seemed to grow heavier, charged with an electric hum. Her every instinct screamed at her to turn back, but she pressed forward. There was no other choice. As Selene stepped into the epicenter of the anomaly, the world around her seemed to distort. The very atmosphere warped, twisting in ways that defied logic. The ground beneath her feet was no longer solid, but a fluid mass of shifting energy. She could feel the weight of time itself bending, dragging her along with it. And there it was, the source. A swirling mass of energy, a force so intense it seemed to pulse with the very essence of creation and destruction. It was as if the universe itself had cracked open, exposing the raw chaos beneath. Humanity's unchecked expansion had done this. Their drive to survive had torn open the fabric of reality, creating a hole in the universe that now threatened to swallow everything in its path. Selene stepped forward, her heart pounding in her chest, her breath shallow. This was it. The moment of reckoning. The only way to stop this madness was to sever the link between the anomaly and the power grid. She had to destroy the core, the very heart of the energy field. Her fingers brushed against the control panel embedded in the ground, and a surge of power shot through her, a shock that rattled her bones. The air crackled with energy, and the force of the anomaly pushed against her with unimaginable pressure. She gritted her teeth, her fingers slipping across the interface. It was as if the core was alive, resisting her every move. "Come on!" she muttered, her voice barely audible over the roar of the anomaly. Her hands shook as she keyed in the final sequence. The ground shook violently, and a voice, deep and resonant, echoed through her mind. "Humanity has arrived." Selene froze, her breath catching in her throat. The voice was not hers. It was something else, something older. The Force. The unstoppable enemy. She could feel its presence, a dark intelligence that had been awakened by her race's ambition. "You cannot stop what has already begun," the voice whispered. "You are the cause, the seed of this destruction. You created me, asterisk." Selene's pulse raced. She wasn't just fighting an external force. She was fighting herself, her species. The darkness that had always lurked in humanity's heart, now made manifest in the chaos they had wrought. The enemy was not some alien conqueror. It was their own insatiable hunger for more. But she would not let them fall victim to it. With a final surge of willpower, Selene slammed her hand down on the control panel. The air around her snapped, the energy field collapsing with a deafening roar. The anomaly shuddered, its pulsations weakening. And then silence. The anomaly blinked out of existence, the power grid around New Terra flickering back to life. The force was gone. Selene stood alone in the quiet aftermath, her body trembling, her heart still racing. She had done it. The anomaly was contained. But at what cost? As she made her way back to the shuttle, the weight of everything they had done pressed down on her. Humanity had faced its greatest enemy, and in the end, it had been their own drive for survival that had almost undone them. They had survived, but the question lingered, could they change? The galaxy would never be the same.